Hi folks, my name is Brady and we are back with another React video, and today we're going to be checking out more from Geography Now. Today we have Barbados, which should be a lot of fun. It's a former British colony. That's always interesting. It has one of the coolest flags. I don't know if I'd call it a 5-star flag, but I can't complain about too much about it. It's got a lot going for it, so that's all kind of cool. It's an island. There's always like international implications to being an island that make for interesting content, especially when we get to things like the friend zone and like how do we classify this or whatever. Yeah, it should be really cool. I'm very excited about this one. What do we got after this? We're gonna be doing Belarus after this. That'll be fun.
Oh, Rihanna's from here. It's time to learn G.
Okay. I like that sort of anti-humor. Like, the joke is the absence of a joke. That's upsetting. That's got to be upsetting for people from Barbados. Or not. I don't know. Maybe they love Rihanna over there, for all I know. But to have your country reduced to, oh, Rihanna, that's the country Rihanna's from. If the United States were approached like, that's the country that, I don't know, who would be the quintessential American celebrity? And I don't want to accidentally name a Canadian. Let's just continue.
Geography now! Hey everybody, I'm your host Paul Barbado, not Barbado. I grew up with that a lot as a kid. And today we're gonna Grados to Barbados. So let's dissect the flag. And trust me, this one's gonna be insanos.
Yeah, before he talks about this, sick flag. I don't know what I would do to improve this. I think it's a very solid. Like, I don't know about having the trident be all black. I want the trident to be like this thing that really sticks out and has this like really powerful color. Like, I'm part of me wants like that yellow to be the trident, but then I don't know what would go in the background because I don't know if I'd want the black in the background and the yellow in the foreground. I don't know if I'd want that because the black and the blue don't contrast enough. It might just be perfect the way it is. But like from a design standpoint, I really appreciate it. The symbol is very powerful. It really does command a lot of respect. Like you see this flag coming up on you, you probably thinking like, oh yeah, they're tough.
You may notice about the flag is that there is a freaking trident on it. Commonly referred to as the broken trident, it represents the nation of Barbados breaking away from the historical constitutional ties as a former British colony. The three represent the three principles of democracy, government of, for, and by the people. The vertical band of gold representing the sands of Barbados' beaches, and the blue represents the sea and the sky of Barbados.
Dude, you stuck that sort of symbology into your flag? I'm liking Barbados so far. We like the breaking off of imperial ties on this channel. That's something that I am very much in favor of. So it's kind of cool seeing that history demonstrated visually. But you wouldn't have to know that to appreciate the flag. That's one of the things that I like. There are some flags where it's got strong imagery if you know it, but if you don't know it, the imagery doesn't really work very well. It just doesn't connect. It doesn't tell anything to the person who's seeing it. Because flags are to communicate something outward, not as much inward. A lot of the inward stuff is a more modern view of how we look at flags and symbols. But flags, like, traditionally have been to convey something to those outside of what that flag represents. And this does a good job with both. It could convey something to the people of Barbados and to other people. It could be like this strong, respectable symbol that you don't necessarily have to know the origin story behind it to be like, yeah, I respect that.
I like flags with weapons.
It's pretty cool.
All right, so here's where Barbados is located. Barbados is located in the Atlantic Ocean just east of St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the Caribbean. You would think Barbados is part of the Caribbean, but you would be wrong and fail because technically it's located 100 miles away in the Atlantic Ocean, but you're not that wrong and fail because it's also considered part of the Caribbean by pretty much everybody else, so it's not that big of a deal, and I'm sorry, I love you guys. Anyway, essentially, Barbados is kind of awkwardly...
That's interesting. We've talked about continents recently in like a few videos ago. And what places would be considered like oceanic countries and which ones would be considered part of like larger continental masses. And that puts Barbados in an interesting place. Is it part of one of the Americas, or would it be considered an oceanic country? If you do use that model, I personally like in the case of a country like Australia and like large islands that are not attached to like other countries or whatever, like in a lot of cases I qualify them as oceanic countries, but this is like, it's pretty close to countries that are in like the continental considered part of the continental Americas. But I don't know if I don't know where you draw the line. I guess politically it would be, I don't know what would be more advantageous. Probably to be part of one of the Americas because it's closer. You probably wouldn't have nearly as many other oceanic neighbors.
Stuck between the two. It's like Vampire Caribbean and Werewolf Atlantic. Barbados, I will always love you for all eternity.
Jeez, how long ago was this?
No, Barbados, I am the only one for you. I will always love you. A lot of people say that the shape of Barbados looks like a pear or a leg of mutton.
References are strange
like
today.
Thumbs up, just without any of the other fingers. Yeah. In terms of its borders, things are going to get really easy because Barbados is just one single island. Like, seriously, there are no other affiliated islands. It's just one lonely island. The total land area is about 430 square kilometers and has a coastline length of about 97 kilometers, so you could drive around the entire island in less than a day, or you could power crawl across the entire island in about 30 hours with no rest and no stops. The capital is Bridgetown, located in the southwest part of the island, and the country is divided up into 11 parishes, and each parish you can find...
Yeah, from the look of it, whenever I look at like these sort of satellite pictures, I always look, let me get my mouse. The people are typically concentrated somewhere on one of the coasts, not as in most countries. When you go inward, it gets a little less populated. This one seems like it's almost entirely concentrated, like kind of on like roughly the southern coast here. We got little spots here, and there might be a little more going up here, but yeah, there doesn't seem to be all that much going on in the middle. Are these mountains? I can't tell how good the topography on this is. Like I don't know.
Rightfully named towns like...
We were mid-zoom, so it wasn't...
Corner. I wish this whole country was made of... Rightfully named towns like Friendship and Pie Corner. I wish this whole country was made of pie. Is it? Let's find out in...
I assume it's not.
No, it's not made of pie. And unlike many of the other islands in the area, it's made up of over 85% coral limestone. Lime. Barbados is also unique in that its geographic location avoids catastrophe very well.
Really?
Elaborate. First of all, if you look at the map, all the other islands of the Lesser Antilles form an arc alongside a tectonic plate and are, like, volcanic and stuff. Barbados is way out on the east and does not have any volcanoes, and add on top of that, it's outside of the hurricane belt, meaning that most hurricanes generally miss or barely graze Barbados.
They'll hit the other islands first.
I do what I want. I don't need no volcano, y'all. I'm hot enough as it is. And y'all hurricanes, out of my face. Out of my face. Barbados, just like many of the other Caribbean islands, is generally flat. But now here's the thing. A lot of the land is arable, about 3/4, but they aren't really dependent on agriculture anymore. Before the 1950s, Barbados was kind of like on a sugar high. Sugar production dominated the economy, but like most sugar highs...
I know it's not technically Caribbean, but we'll just say islands in that general region of the world have historically been used during like that particular age of colonialism as sugar islands. It's been the struggle of a lot of Caribbean islands, and since they are so closely associated with the Caribbean, even if they're technically not, by some people's understanding, I'm not surprised that there are some similarities there. Hope he's okay.
Seizure and death. Nah, just kidding. No, but seriously, sugar prices dramatically fell. Fortunately, Barbados was smart and shifted their focus to other means of revenue like tourism, business, and like many other adorable islands, offshore banking sectors, as they decided to become kind of somewhat of a tax haven.
Oh,
Which drew in tons of
that's
international
bad.
investors. Which just goes to show, not charging people for things will definitely make them like you. Oh yeah, and Barbados has some beautiful beaches, coral reefs, and caves. But they've always been huge fans of rum. In fact, they are home to the oldest rum distillery in the world, which opened up in the piratey years of the early 1700s.
Pirates!
Mount Mount Gay rum. There's a saying that Barbados has as many churches as rum shops, and to this day, rum alone makes up about 9% of the entire economy. Most of the rum was made from whatever leftover sugar was from the sugar high. Church sugar rum, that's all you need in Barbados. Toss in a Rihanna and then bam! Well, Rihanna is one Barbadian, but let's talk about the rest.
Yeah, that would be nice. I only know one at this stage. I probably know of more and just don't know they're
Barbadian.
from there.
A Barbabian. Okay, I just had to open this with.
His jokes are extra bad. This is probably like the worst back-to-back jokes that I've heard, and like I'm not even going to hate on somebody for having some bad jokes, because these are the kind of jokes that I would make, like non-jokes, like knowing they're not funny and expecting you to give me a pity laugh for it.
Something. Barbados has about 285,000 people, or a few more than Vanuatu. 90% of all Barbadians are of
We're not going to get to that one for a
descent
while.
or mixed descent, and the remaining 10% of the population include groups of Europeans along with Asians. As mentioned before, there are lots of churches in Barbados, as 95% of the population identifies as Christian, of which 70% are regularly active. The largest denominations are Anglican, and the other branches like Methodists and Baptists. Barbados is also known to live long. Barbados and Japan have the highest per capita occurrences of centenarians in the world.
Oh, really?
Rum. Barbados is the only country in the Caribbean to.
I know Japan does. I wonder why Barbados would. I don't even fully understand why Japan does. For some reason, that didn't feel very surprising to me, though. I'm not. I would like a reason, but I don't know if they have like a solid reason for that. I would say, don't they eat pretty well in Japan? I don't know, like they don't have like the same obesity problem that a lot of Western countries have. I don't know what Barbados has going for it.
To have been a colony of the British Empire for over 300 years, which is why it is affectionately called sometimes as Little England. Of course, English is the official language, but with a distinguishable but subtle Barbadian dialect known as Bajan. Located in the southwest part of the country,
Bajan.
Bridgetown, the capital, which has a little bit more than a third of the population. Bridgetown keeps it old school. They like to maintain a lot of their colonial buildings from a long time ago. Also, if you go to Barbados, you'll most likely return, as they have the highest repeat visitor factor in the region at 39%. Mainly because Barbadians are so super nice and friendly. Also, it's so great to visit that it's one of the only places in the world that George Washington ever traveled outside of the U.S. Of course, culturally, they
really?
enjoy a lot of steel drum.
That's actually very interesting. Yeah, George Washington, he toured a little bit. He got around, but yeah, he stayed very much within the country. I didn't know about that. That's a story certainly worth learning about. I can kind of understand why the people would be nice, because you do have to sort of tolerate a lot of outsiders, and if your economy is like dependent upon tolerating outsiders, you probably want them to be cool with you. You probably want to work with them all right. I mean, there are plenty of places that are also dependent on outsiders and they're total like butts, but
calypso music, carnival, and they have a harvest festival called Crop Up. And more recently, Rihanna's birthday has actually become a very important day for Barbados. And whenever she comes back, the locals, they'll tell you that they love her, they're proud of her, but they don't treat her like royalty. She's just like one of the family. Barbadians are also flying fish fanatics. They have flying fish coins, flying fish sculptures, flying fish on their coat of arms, flying fish holograms on their passports. They're even
that's
known
really
as
cool.
the land of the flying fish. And the
I've never seen one in person.
Paste made out of
I'd love to, though.
okra and flying fish. They love flying fish so much that they eat them, as you do with everything that you love. Finding Nemo got it wrong. In Barbados, fish are friends and food. Speaking of friends. Barbados loves people. For the most part, they have great relationships with all of their neighbors, especially the ones in the CARICOM community, as Barbados was a founding member of CARICOM. Many Barbadians actually also have family members in many of these island nations. They have 6 official on-site embassies for other countries, but also have many off-site embassies for countries like Colombia, Denmark, and France, hosted in other countries like Jamaica, Mexico, and Belgium. Otherwise, they have nearly 20 consulates in other countries. When it comes to the UK, not only do they have a tight historical relationship, but also a modern-day diplomatic one that displays a great cultural affection. Barbados is a Commonwealth country with Queen Elizabeth as technically the head of state. And to this day, Barbados has more British nationals living in it than any other country in the Caribbean, and the third in the Americas after the US and Canada. In terms of their best friends, they more or less might consider Trinidad and Tobago. Granted, in the past, they did have territorial disputes over maritime boundaries, and there was that one song that Mac wrote that kind of pissed off the Barbadians when he said Barbados was part of Trinidad and Tobago. But all of that aside, they get along amazingly well and love to see each other.
That's a funny
opportunity comes for them.
A funny little bit of beef.
The two countries also signed an agreement to construct a 177-mile-long liquid natural gas pipeline between the two to share resources and energy. In conclusion, Barbados is... No, I can't even do this. Rihanna, why didn't you answer my tweets? I tweeted you like 4 times. Come on. You had this opportunity.
Oh, did he want her to be on it?
Next.
I've been down with that. That would have been pretty funny. I see that in a lot of his later ones. He gets people on his videos. I don't know if... I know he doesn't actually expect to get Rihanna on this, but I wonder when that actually comes into play. I'd imagine it might be a little while. We're still in the B's, so but once we get into a lot of the later ones, we're not going to be able to double up on these because they get pretty long. I've seen some of the more recent uploads, and a lot of them go up to 30 minutes per country, which that's a lot. You want to talk about Belarus? I think we could do one more of these, right? What we got for time? Yeah, we got time. Let's do Belarus, and then we'll call it a day.
Nieważne kolki ruski, ludzki kajuc, nie nazywać ich ruskaya.
Another one of these places.
Belarus.
Yeah, it's really just a dice roll with his video and is it on my end? Is it my problem? Because it could be me. I don't want to. Yeah, I need to actually crank up my quality before I judge it. Sometimes it seems like it's a dice roll what his video and audio quality are going to be, because it seems like he's at the point where he's really clearing things up. His background is more crisp than it was initially, but every once in a while you get these little things, because in the early episodes he had these little video and audio gaffes, but they're getting cleaner and cleaner, which is really cool to see.
Bruce, the land where people will tell you, don't call me Russian, as they say that to you in Russian. But first, you know the drill, let's dissect the flag. The flag has 2 bands, one red taking up 2/3 of the height of the flag, and a green one in the lower third, and a white Rushnyk pattern on the left hoist side. According to Alexander Lukashenko, president since 1994,
I know him.
The flag was created. The red represents freedom and sacrifice of the nation's forefathers. The green represents life, and the Rushnyk pattern has more of a cultural connotation rather than a symbolized one.
Yeah, I've seen those before. I've always said they reminded me of carpets, and I'm not trying to mess with anybody. I've just literally seen patterns very similar to that on old looking carpets. I don't know. That's the closest thing I've seen to that. Or some tacky sweaters. And these all sound like such insults. I'm sorry. I actually don't want to. On a sweater, that's tacky. That's all I'm saying. I'm not. It's a little weird on a flag, but that's because I'm totally not used to like that sort of a design on a flag. It's not what I've come to learn flags should look like.
In Belarusian cloths and woven material, some Rushnyks have hidden meanings, but the one on the flag doesn't really have one. But you know what is official?
I'm glad.
The borders of Belarus.
Or I might have
and transition. Now this is where things get fun, because in order to understand Belarus's boundaries, you kind of have to look close and find the few oddities that stick out. First of all, Belarus is located in Eastern Europe, landlocked between 5 other countries, Russia, Ukraine, and Poland, and Lithuania, and Latvia. The country is divided up into 6 regions. This one is called Brest. Brest. One special administrative district, Minsk, the capital city, and getting into Belarus is going to be relatively easy for all the neighbor nations. There are various roads and trains that travel to Belarus from places like Poland, Russia, and Lithuania. However, border guards have the jurisdiction to pretty much deny entry to anyone they deem as not worthy and have no problem sending them back. Typically, if your nationality is not from the Eastern European region, you may find it a little bit more difficult to enter, and this is one of the reasons why Belarus is one of the least visited countries in all of Europe. Long story short, if you aren't A, Eastern European, or B, you don't speak any Russian or Belarusian, or C, if you don't have a Russian or Belarusian friend to vouch for you, then getting in might have a little bit more of a complication, and it might cost you a lot in visa fees. However, Belarus loves visitors.
It's kind of interesting.
They're just suspicious of all you guys, that's all. The borders are strange because even though there are lots of rivers and lakes, not many of them define the borders of Belarus. I mean, sure, you have the short river borders like the Katra River in Lithuania and the Dnieper River in the south of Ukraine, but most of the borders are just arbitrarily drawn lines situated over land in which the trees and bushes are hacked to show the territory marks. Some of these borders get weird, like in the north, you have the Adutiškis railway station split between Lithuania and Belarus, in which for about a mile, heading east, you'll be in Belarus, and heading west, you'll be in Lithuania. Also, you have an island split between Belarus and Lithuania in Lake Ryčių, and 2 islands and 2 peninsulas in Lake Drukšie or Drisvati. Look, I'm trying my best to pronounce these Slavic and Baltic words. Just bear with me.
Oh, I forgive you, man. Some people expect you to look up the pronunciation of every little thing you have to say. Honestly, in my opinion, as long as they understand where you're talking about, just do your best and don't go crazy. Like, if this was like a more serious thing and it wasn't just like a general overview and people like were really trying to get a deep dive into this, like, I get why you would want to pronounce those things correctly, but these are kind of little asides.
Let's not even get started on how Lithuania was like, I'm just gonna take this Dieveniškių Istorinis National Park from you guys, even if it does give me like a 1 mile wide corridor to reach it. The weirdest part though would have to be the small Russian Sankovo-Medvyeshe enclave in the south near the border by Ukraine. This place used to—
I love enclaves.
Still does belong to Russia, and under it is an old Russian military base. However, the entire place, including the base and 2 small towns near it, are virtually abandoned and empty. Why do you ask? Because of Chernobyl! Back in 1980—
Oh, yeah, that's where that is.
It affected Belarus more than it did Ukraine, and to this day, a huge—
Well, it's close. Yeah, okay. In the grand scheme of things, I kind of already forgot where we were talking about.
portion of the south border by Ukraine is left completely abandoned due to the radioactive fallout that still lingers to this day. Due to the fact that there are no more operating checkpoints, this spot is notoriously known as the prominent place in all of Belarus where the few desperate and incredibly stupid people go to smuggle things in across the border. You know, at the risk of radiation poisoning. Hey man, I got that thing you wanted. On a vantage point.
Okay, that was my favorite. That was my favorite bit he's done so far in this series.
The area is really beautiful with lush forests and green pastures used for farm. Oh wait, before I talk about that, we have to show the transition. There we go, perfect. Like I was saying, Belarus's southland is actually very green and lush. A huge portion of this land prior to Chernobyl was used for farming and agriculture. However, today it's sadly kind of neglected by force. Thanks a lot, Ukraine. We could have used that land for like food and stuff. About 70% of the radiation from Chernobyl went to Belarus, and a fifth of Belarus's land was affected by the fallout. This is partially the reason why Belarus is a lot more urbanized today than it was prior to the 80s, since many of the people were displaced and evacuated from the region to avoid the danger. Today, however, with the help of the
Can't blame them for that, I guess.
They are trying to combat the fallout problem by using cesium binders and rapeseed. I feel really uncomfortable saying that, but rapeseed cultivation, as the plant is known for absorbing the cesium-137 isotope. This is one of the few Western world backed up projects in Belarus, as they typically shy away from anything past Poland. Otherwise, the land of Belarus is generally flat. As a landlocked nation, they have no access to the sea. However, they do have more than enough water internally, with an abundance of rivers and lakes. About 40% of the land is forested. Some are captivatingly beautiful, like the Belarusskaya forest in the west by Poland, one of the few places where you can find the rare European bison, Belarus's favorite animal, which is even featured on the emblem, and a mascot for
they're so beautiful.
The most common resource
they really are. Oh, I've never seen a bison in person. America, we have like the American buffalo, and like it's still a very rare thing. It's like it was nearly hunted to extinction, so you don't really see them a whole lot. Especially, you don't see them where I'm from. But like, I've always wanted to see a bison up close. It sounds amazing. I might have seen one at a zoo once. I'm not sure which zoo though. But overall, like they are just some of the most beautiful creatures I've ever seen. You might question my idea of beauty, but that's what I see.
Which I just learned is some kind of decayed vegetation. The most common Belarus's favorite animal, which is featured on the emblem, and a mascot for various hockey teams. The most common resource in Belarus is peat, which I just learned is some kind of decayed vegetation slab thing that can be used for both fertilizer and fuel. I don't know, I'm not a pediatrician. Belarus is also located in the transitional zone between the continental and maritime climates, so the weather is sometimes a little bit erratic. Summers typically range lower than room temperature, around 18 degrees Celsius or 65 degrees Fahrenheit, so you probably won't see any bikinis or Speedos, but you know who you will see?
And that was a good segue. Like, he had like some of his worst jokes in the Barbados one, and now he's like, he's just on point. His transitions are perfect. His jokes are actually like landing pretty well with me. The coughing up blood thing, that was like perfect.
This is probably going to be the most interesting part of the video. The Belarusian people are what really make this enigmatic country stick out. First of all, Belarus has about 9.5 million people, about 84% of whom identify as ethnically Belarusian. The weird thing, though, is that even though over 80% of the people identify as ethnically Belarusian, only a fraction of these people actually speak the Belarusian language. That's right, Belarus has its own language. In fact, the Belarusian language is kind of like a mixture between Polish and Russian, and is about half derived from the Russian language. So if
this is a region of the world that I struggle with most regions of the world, but when I'm playing like GeoGuessr and stuff like that, I really struggle to differentiate the languages, because there's so many similarities there that could draw me to Russia or somewhere around there, but then there's like these little things that you can tell are a little different, but it's just like I'm not well acquainted enough with the languages to differentiate them.
If a Belarusian speaks Belarusian to a Russian, the Russian will be able to understand basically the overall gist of what the Belarusian is trying to say, but will still have some problems with the particularities. Even more confusing, many Belarusians actually speak in a Transyanka dialect, which is like a mixture of Belarusian and Russian. The president, Alexander Lukashenko, even speaks in a Transyanka accent sometimes. Speaking of Lukashenko, since independence from the former Soviet Union in the 90s, Belarus has only had one president since 1994, Alexander Lukashenko. And to understand Belarus, you kind of have to know who this guy is. Many people in Europe will tell you that Lukashenko is Europe's last real dictator. And I mean, when you have a guy who wins an election and makes laws that extend his terms and then the number of terms that he can serve, yeah, the term dictator doesn't really seem too far-fetched of a title. Lukashenko is a strange but kind of funny.
So it's not like a president for life thing. It's like there are elections, but like he kind of puts his finger on the scale a little bit. Okay, that makes sense, because nobody in any like in a really democratic society that's not being sabotaged, it's very hard to have a leader maintain like a reign that long. I'm not saying it's impossible. We've had some really popular world leaders, but that is very difficult to maintain without me thinking Oh yeah, there's probably something sketchy there.
Leader in that, yes, he's kind of been accused of human rights violations, and yes, he's been accused of being slightly racist and slightly anti-Western, and he's always speaking in a brash, slightly aggressive tone that kind of makes him look angry. However, you can't deny the fact that he did kind of build up Belarus with a slightly better infrastructure than it was during the Soviet rule, and to this day, unemployment has dropped to nearly 1%, and they actually prosecute citizens who don't have jobs. And the cities are always clean, and the crime rate is incredibly low, making Belarus one of the safest places in Europe, and technically because punishments for crimes are incredibly severe. Granted, the currency exchange rate and GDP is always low too, and jobs pay very minimal, and with a state-owned structure, company privatization is almost completely non-existent. But hey, that just means souvenirs are dirt cheap, right? Lukashenko has his opponents, and trust me, there have been a lot of anti-Lukashenko protests, but a lot of the people in Belarus can't deny, on the surface at least, that he's kind of a relatable person. I mean, as an athlete, he absolutely loves hockey and constantly plays it himself, even at exhibition games, sometimes with his own sons, which is why in 2014 he was delighted when Minsk hosted the Ice Hockey World Championships. Plus, I mean, look at that mustache. Just look at it! Nonetheless, Lukashenko has successfully gotten Belarus in a bit of heat.
He looks like a cop. He looks like he's about to call me into his office and tell me to do it by the book.
With the rest of the EU and the Western world due to the way how he runs the country, and to this day relations are kind of non-existent or strained with them. Well, good luck, Belarus! You're off to a great diplomatic start. As you can probably guess, Belarus is a little when it comes to friends. I mean, yes, they have their affiliates, but it's a little complicated. First of all, Belarus's relationships are strange because they get along best with all 5 of their border neighbors. However, due to sanctions imposed upon them after allegations on Lukashenko, they are essentially closed off to the EU, which is weird because Poland and Lithuania and Latvia are in the EU. This makes things interesting because Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia are kind of seen as like conduit countries that act as a bridge between the EU and Belarus. Every so often, the EU will do experiments in which they will lift some of the sanctions to see if Belarus will engage. Typically, Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia get involved. Poland and Lithuania have been close friends since day one anyway, as Belarus has been part of the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Polish-Lithuania Commonwealth for over 500 years. There's always been, in a sense, a Polish and Lithuanian influence in Belarus for the longest time. Afterwards, things switched up and Russia kind of took over in the 18th century, and that's when things really started to get Russified. Even the name Belarus means White Russia, and that's where the 3 sisters come in. Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus, commonly referred to as the Slavic sisters. These 3 countries understand each other better than anyone else in the world. When it comes to Ukraine, Belarus actually, at some points, got along with them much better relationally than they did with Russia, and the Ukrainian language is actually closer to the Belarusian language than Russian, making exchanges much more easier for them.
That just makes this even more confusing. Like, I don't understand the languages of the region at all.
Got sour, though, was Crimea back in 2014. Russia invaded the Ukrainian-held region of Crimea, and amidst all the circumstances, Belarus actually kind of sided more with Russia than Ukraine, which made Ukraine kind of like, Belarus, how could you?
I remember that.
So you think Russia is best friends with Belarus, and they kind of are. I mean, on all...
That was hard for me to follow at the time.
Yes, it's kind of true. However, it's more like a love-hate relationship.
Still is.
For the longest time, Belarus was kind of seen as like Russia's little puppy. Everything started out great, and in the mid-90s, they signed treaties and friendship agreements and cooperation deals. They did huge business, and Lukashenko and Putin would ski together in the mountains. But then over time, Russia got a little, what Belarusians would describe as pushy. They accused Russia of trying to bribe them numerous times to assuage their national advocacies, like in the 2000s. They tried to get Belarus to recognize the South Ossetia and Abkhazia regions, and after the refusal, Russia banned all dairy products from Belarus, commonly referred to as the Milk War. And then there were the gas wars.
The Milk War.
Threats. And to this day, Lukashenko...
I'm sure it's very serious, I'm sorry.
...instituted a complete restructuring of the entire country's operations to become de-Russified. Textbooks, educational material, broadcasting, TV, even street signs are now being switched over to become exclusively published in Belarusian and not Russian. Children are being taught Belarusian first and Russian second now, and this was done as A, a response to the tiring relations with Russia, and B, as an attempt to resurge the sense of nationalism in the population of Belarus. In conclusion, after years of crazy messed up drama, Belarus is really starting to learn how to become Belarus again, one small diplomatically strained step at a time. Stay tuned, Belgium is coming up next.
Oh shoot, what up? We're getting to a country that,
Let me tell you a little...
sorry. Sorry.
Let me tell you a little story.
Where is it? There it is. Stop. 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 Okay. So, I'm enjoying this so far. I guess next time we're going to be doing Belgium, and if it ends up being... we end up doubling up, we can do Belize, which That could be pretty cool. Belgium, I'm sure that's going to be a big one. That's a country I could use a little bit of learning up on. I think that could be a lot of fun. I really enjoyed those last couple. Barbados was an extremely interesting country, especially with its... I've got a... actually, I'm going to Google this right now before I head out. What continent... My bird's getting into trouble. Barbados located. Okay, it's considered North America according to the Google machine. I should have looked up that the answer to that question earlier. Man. Okay, but that was interesting. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll be back with more geography now eventually. And I've got other things that will be happening on this channel in the near future. Give me some time, though. I'll let you in on it. All right. Thank you, and I will see you very soon with another video. All right.